Is Sergio Perez good enough? That's a question I recently asked myself after posting a video a couple of weeks ago ranking all F1 drivers this season. If you want, you can go ahead and check that out, but I realized soon after publishing that video that I ranked Checo way too high. I think I ranked him as the third or fourth best driver this season, and let's be honest, he obviously wasn't. Looking at how badly he was beaten by Max this season really shows that 2022 wasn't exactly the great season I thought Checo had. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I think I looked more or less at his highs rather than his lows this season when I ranked him a couple of weeks ago, because yes, on one hand, Checo did win both the Monaco Grand Prix, which of course we'll talk about the controversy surrounding that a bit later, and also he won the Singapore Grand Prix, which overall was just a very impressive performance and perfectly executed weekend on Checo's end. Also, looking towards the start of the season when it seemed Perez was getting along very well with the RB18, he could have potentially won the Saudi Arabian GP if it wasn't for the safety car on lap 15. So when looking at his good moments, sure, they were pretty damn good. Until you look over to the other side of the Red Bull garage at his teammate, Max Verstappen, who of course won his second world championship with a good few races to spare. Remember, these two had the same car beneath them. Max won 15 races in 2022, as opposed to Checo, who only managed 2 race wins. Max achieved 7 poles, Checo got 1. Out of all the races this season, Checo only beat Max on 4 occasions for both race day and qualifying. Max beat Checo 18 times in qualifying and 17 times on race days. I don't know, but if you ask me, those stats are a little one-sided to say the very least. I mean, let's be real, Checo got absolutely hammered by Max. But of course, we do have to take into consideration who exactly Checo has been up against. I mean, it's been no secret that Verstappen is and has been the better driver between the two. In fact, at the moment, he's arguably the best driver on the track. But still, even then, you can't overlook the fact that Sergio has had the most dominant car this season at his disposal, and he only managed to come out with 2 wins. For the first half of the season, the RB18 was clearly fairly close to the Ferrari in terms of performance, but as far as porpoising went, they were already on top of that problem while Ferrari weren't, making it the better car, even though as far as pace went, they were both quite close. But when Spa came around, there was no doubting who had the fastest car. It was Red Bull, no question about it. There was no real threat against them. Now it was all up to the drivers to perform. Max of course did, but Checo not so much. You think that by the looks of how fast Sergio seemed to be at the start of the season, that with a car like the RB18, he would easily have finished second in the drivers' standings behind Max. But looking at Perez's second half of the season, it was quite underwhelming. In fact, it was quite weak overall. The amount of times Perez finished off the podium in 2022, in my opinion, is quite crazy, considering the fact that at one point it was looking like Max could equal and maybe even beat Sebastian Vettel's 9 race wins in a row record, while Checo was fighting for podiums. So obviously now, looking back, I would definitely rank Perez much lower, probably around the 9th or 10th best driver this season, to be honest. He didn't even manage to beat Charles Leclerc in the standings, who by the end of the season was in a far inferior car. Of course, I do believe that Charles is the better driver, so if they were an equal machinery, I would expect Leclerc to beat Perez, but man, with what Checo was given, I'm really surprised that he didn't manage that second place in the driver's standings. And of course, we can't talk about Checo without talking about Monaco. In qualifying, Perez crashed during the last few seconds of quali, so the session ended early and Checo secured a P3 race start. Now, while this happened, Verstappen was on a flying lap, and of course, he had to abort because rules are rules. But the lap Max was on was looking pretty damn good and could have potentially been a shot at pole after a quite terrible session all round for Max. So Checo's crash cost Max a better starting position. But with telemetry data coming out after the crash and onboard footage that I can't show since I'll be copyrighted, it looked as if Checo had crashed on purpose. Now, it's not 100%, and of course we'll probably never know unless someone admits it, but what we do know is Checo went on to win that race in Monaco the next day, mostly because of Ferrari's dumb strategy calls, but also because it's pretty much impossible to overtake there. So what am I getting at here? Well, my point is that the only reason Checo actually beat Max here was because of his crash in qualifying. If that hadn't been the case, the chances of Checo actually winning that race would have been very, very low. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been pointing out all of Checo's issues this season, but really, I like the guy. That's why I ranked him so damn high in my other video, but you can't rank a driver based on whether you like them or not, because if that was the case, Latifi would have been number 1. I'm just kidding, that's ridiculous. Latifi was number 1 anyway. But to get back to why I was wrong about Perez and to answer the question, is Sergio Perez good enough? For F1, definitely. In the end, he's still definitely a quality driver, who by the way is only 32 years old. On his day, he can be menacingly quick, and he didn't get his reputation for being the king of tire management from nowhere. The guy is talented and also extremely skilled, but is he good enough for Red Bull? And honestly, I think the answer to that question is no. or at least not at the level he's performed this year. Looking back at 2021, I can definitely see why Perez stuck around. A big factor that helped Max win the 2021 championship was of course Perez. Just take a look back to some of his fights he had with Hamilton last season, say Turkey or Abu Dhabi. Absolutely epic stuff. But this year he drove like a different person. And I mean that in a negative way. I think Perez is in an iffy position right now with Red Bull. Ricciardo was signed a couple of months ago as the third driver for Red Bull, but I don't think either Horner, Ricciardo, or even Perez think that Daniel will remain in that position for too long. He's a quality driver who's had a couple of extremely rough seasons at McLaren, but I think if Perez performs the same way he did in 2022 again next season, Daniel will have a decent chance at replacing Perez for 2024. But that was all my opinion, guys. Do you agree? Do you not? Please do let me know down in the comments below. It really helps out with the algorithm and it spreads the video a lot more, so please do that. Also, please consider liking and subscribing to help with the growth of this channel. I'm really trying to grow it out to be something bigger than it is at the moment, so also please like and subscribe. But on that note, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I do hope you all have a blessed night, and I'll catch you all next time.